The Nelson Mandela Foundation says it commends the ANC NEC for their decision to recall President Jacob Zuma, as South Africans have reached a point where they can no longer wait for him to step down. Sello Hatang, the chief executive of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, joins us. He's in our parliamentary studio to give us the reaction from the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Good to have you, Sello. Thank you very, very much for talking to us here on the program.
Thank you very much and good morning, Leon.
So, the Nelson Mandela Foundation called for President Jacob Zuma to step down 14 months ago and now say it's happy about the NEC's decision to recall him. Tell us a little bit more about your stance.
I think you'd remember that over a year ago we made the first statement from the board of the Nelson Mandela Foundation saying it's about time that we restore governance, good governance in our country. At the time we were worried that what the president represented was not good for the kind of legacy that we want to build for our country and for the kind of future that we want to see. The economy is crippling because of poor administration thereof. You have the unemployment levels just at their highest at this point. And it's these things that we're saying needs to be fixed. Now, we are not saying the resignation of the president will solve all problems. And we want to caution against the excitement just with the recall, is that the recall will be one step in the long way ahead as we fix what has been destroyed. You look at the criminality that has been going on, the thievery that has been going on. It's by removing what's represented by the president, you're then likely to then have these things beginning to improve. And we want to congratulate our justice system for what it has been doing to try fix. And we're saying keep on going on so that there's accountability.
Sello, in the statement that the foundation released, it says that the president betrayed a country that the late Nelson Mandela dreamed of and should be held accountable for some of the allegations against him. Can you perhaps elaborate a little bit on this for us?
I think one of the things that we saw in terms of the first, second government, the main thing that was being tried was to ensure that we fix what was wrong, deal with the issues of inequality, which of course was just laying the foundation for that. Thus far, we haven't even done anything to fix those things. And due to the personalities that are there who then concentrated on the self more than service, we believe that the little that was done was then destroyed. We believe that one of the things that should be concentrated on at the moment is how do we ensure that that legacy of reimagining a new economy that can then help serve the poor and the vulnerable is then brought back again, and it's by starting with little steps of ensuring that we can then have real transformation when it comes to the economy. That doesn't serve self, but serves communities that are in desperate need of those services.
All right. Sello, I'm going to invite into our conversation. I've got two guests in the studio with me. I'm sure you know them very, very well. And so does the rest of South Africa. Sipho Pityana, a pleasure to have you, the chairperson of Save SA, as well as Dr Popo Molefe, who is a patron of Future South Africa. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining in our conversation.
Thanks, Leon.
Sipho, I'm going to begin with you. I mean, you have been exceptionally vocal. I mean, I don't think anybody can forget the speech that you gave at the Reverend Makhlenkezhe Stofile's funeral. This is where you came out, spoke about corruption. You were adamant. You were lambasted for some of the things that you said. But I think this set the framework for what Save SA is all about. Yeah. You were trying to save SA.
Yeah. Well, Sello is correct. This has been a systematic destruction, an example of which is this very institution, SABC, which had somebody let loose on it, and a leadership that was let loose on it to destroy one of the best institutions in the media system. And of course, the disablement of institutions of the criminal justice, the police, the hawks, and all of that. By the way, we have a world-class arsenal of institutions to fight corruption in our country. And one of the reasons why corruption has been thriving is because one of the first steps that Jacob Zuma administration took was the disbandment of the Scorpions, you'll remember. And then he went on with a range of other things. He tried to extend the term of office of the Chief Justice as part of his way of undermining the judiciary. So this was a deliberate, calculated program of creating a favorable environment for corruption to thrive. So that's why we have the problem that we have. It's not because we don't know what needs to be done. It's because such systems and policies and programs that were established in the early years of post-apartheid administration were systematically disabled.
Yeah. Let's speak to you, Dr. Molefe. Now, of course, yesterday you were one of the very first organizations to come forward, hold an entire press conference about the recall of President Jacob Zuma. So what do you think has taken so long? Because we've been reporting on this, but it's all hearsay that the president was recalled. But then yesterday afternoon, we finally got confirmation from the SG that he has been recalled. What's taking so long to get President Jacob Zuma to leave office?
Well, firstly, the man is fighting for his survival. He knows he's got many criminal charges which are to be preferred against him. Of course, he had said that he wants his day in court, but we know that he never means what he says. But the second thing is that in 2007 and subsequently in 2012, when the National Executive Committee of the ANC was elected in Parliament, they systematically ensured that a lot of people in that Executive Committee are cronies, and many of them got compromised in the rampant corruption that has been taking place in the country. So all of them, well, let me not say all of them, quite a significant number of them, therefore know that if the dawn of that group goes down, all of them would follow. So they are fighting to stay in office. Of course, as Sipho has correctly pointed out, they have disabled the very important institutions of law enforcement, which ensure the rule of law in the country. And they know that with those institutions being weak, they can stay forever in office and continue this corruption.
Yeah, I mean, both of you have been in governmental positions. You were premier. You've been there too in the capacity of Labour. Is it that difficult to get rid of a member of your party, of the ANC, that is clearly breaking the Constitution, even though the ANC hasn't come out and said that clearly? You know, there were no reasons given yesterday, but it appears from the outset, from the outside, that it is a very difficult thing to do. Is it, or is it just for this particular man?
I think it's indecisiveness. It is for this particular man. I think they've created a Frankenstein in the leadership of the organization. We have served with President Nelson Mandela. We disagreed with him on many occasions in that NEC. But he was a man of conscience and goodwill. He listened to the rational arguments presented and never insisted on having his way and nothing else. But the kind of leadership we have had since 2007 is a very strange leadership that is alien to the traditions of our movement and the democratic systems that we set up in 1993 through the interim constitution and the final constitution in 1994. So I think it's this indecisiveness and the fact that many of the people who are supposed to be making decisions to remove him were compromised. I mean, well, somebody said I mustn't talk about press. I was going to give you an example of what happens when you go to Parliament talking about corruption. You have the MPs actually fighting you for fighting corruption. You know,
well, that's
the problem we've got. Yeah,
that happens when you actually sideline your own organization and be a law unto yourself, and feel that because you've done that, you can do that with the country too. And unfortunately, with regard to the country, we've been able as civil society to use the powerful architecture that we have in the Constitution to take the president on. You will have seen that this is a president that has been in and out of the courts, and his government has been taken to court by civil society on so many occasions. Had we not had this, saving grace in South Africa has been its constitutional dispensation. Powerful media, independent judiciary, and quite active civil society being prepared to stick their necks out and take on a rogue president.
Yeah. I'm going to use an analysis as we run up to the news. We've got about a minute to go, where there was this story that saying, or an analysis saying basically that there is, when you put lemon in a glass of water and you take that lemon out, the water is still sour. It's still bitter.
Yeah.
Just by taking President Jacob Zuma out, is everything going to be okay?
No. President Zuma is at a very important starting point because he's the sponsor-in-chief of corruption and state capture. And then it becomes possible, once you've removed him, to do what needs to be done. And everybody knows what needs to be done. And listening to ANC President Ramaphosa and about what he intends to do, it is quite clear that he understands what needs to be done. And we need the space with him gone to urgently roll up our sleeves and do what we need to do to ensure that the institutions of the criminal justice do what they need to do. We clean up the state-owned enterprises. We restore the credibility of independent institutions, and we ensure that we have the Chapter 9 institutions that President Zuma tried to compromise, including that Office of the Public Protector, being given the necessary authority and standing in society that it has developed over years.
All right, I'm going to have to stop there because it is 7 o'clock here on the program. Sello Hatang, I know that you've been in our parliamentary studios as well. I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to wrap up. Your views for today. Why do you think the President Jacob Zuma, do you think that this is the day that he resigns, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I think if there's anything that we should hope for, is that with that resignation, and Dr Pityana is absolutely correct, that with that resignation, we should then as South Africans say, now it's time for us to take the tools to rebuild the country. So whether he resigns on Saturday or he resigns on a Friday, it's for South Africans to begin to say, how do we chart the way forward? And how do we rebuild a country that we imagined in 1994? And how do we get all these systems in line so that they can then help the poor and the vulnerable in our society? That business needs to take responsibility for also just giving in whenever these tenders were being given, and we need to be fixing. It's time for us to just take our implements and then go out in the field and work.
Right, Sello Hatang, we'll leave it there. Thank you very, very much. From the Nelson Mandela Foundation, also Sipho Pityana, the Chairperson of Save SA, and Dr Popo Molefe, the patron of Future South Africa. Gentlemen, we thank you so very much for your time. It's just gone 7 o'clock.